Hello, and welcome to the lore of Braunhaven. This is Thanksgiving week. I hope everybody that is watching this video is going to have a good Thanksgiving filled with good food and family and friends. So, my heartfelt wishes to you to have a glorious Thanksgiving holiday. So, one of the things that a lot of people who have played D&D 5th edition ran into was the characters amassing large amounts of treasure, mostly in the form of gold. And there was really a very big hole, creating it's just a lack of anything for the characters to really spend their money on. Now, some of that, of course, has been alleviated a bit, and that started with, I believe, the Waterdeep campaign, um, where the characters could sink their money into rebuilding a tavern, and it, it taught some very real life lessons of what goes into such a thing. It's not just buying the supplies to stock the tavern. You have to pay for repairs, and in order to pay for the repairs, you have to pay a tithe to that particular guild, the Guild of Construction Workers or Masons or what have you. And then, as far as stocking the inn once the repairs have been made, then there's the issue of having to pay the guild of wines, ales, and liquor, and they are the only distributors in the city. And so there was a plethora of places for them to sink their money into. And in 5th edition, that was pretty much it. They even in the DMG, WotC just kind of left out item creation. There That was probably one of the bigger money sinks for characters in old school D&D, was creating a magic item. They left out costs for upkeep and maintaining your equipment, um, even the need to purchase new equipment. So you ended up, after about 6th or 7th level, you ended up with characters carrying around a pile of gold coins and gems and really not much to spend it on. Now, I've heard that, and I haven't played it, but I've heard that with the 2024 edition, now you have bastions, um, which is a conundrum all in and of themselves. But at least it's something that the characters can spend some money, some of that gold coin on. We used to have a term that also tied in with encumbrance of, the characters are carrying a castle on their back because they have all of these items that they have decided to either hoard or hang on to for some reason, that they're not using, and that they is just taking up an entire side sheet of their character. And of course, they have this pile of gold, and so nothing is outside of their reach. That creates a problem for the game master. Not so much that I mean, it's not a huge problem, I guess, if you want to wear blinders and just ignore that fact. But beyond the occasional inn stay or buying a meal or ale, what have you, why do your characters have all this money? And so, in Castles and Crusades, it is baked into the system, or at least initially, it's partially baked into the system of a way to solve that problem. And the name of this episode, magic items, or I'm sorry, money sinks and saving throws. You wouldn't think that those two really go together, but they do, and I'll explain how. So, magic item creation is baked into the very core rulebooks. This is right out of Monsters and Treasure, um, and it tells you exactly what is required or what level is required for your characters to create certain magic items. There's, of course, Scrolls. All casters can create a magic scroll starting at 7th level. They cannot create one before 7th level. But there is a material component cost. So it's 100 gold pieces per level of the scroll to be created. So a 2nd level scroll is going to cost you 200 gold. There are, of course, time sinks in addition to that. It's not something that they can just do overnight while they're at camp. You're talking about 12 hours per level of spell. So it's going to take a little while. And that's just scrolls. You then, of course, have potions. You can create potions, and clerics and druids can do that at 9th level. Wizards, illusionists, and in Braunhaven, necromancers and witches can do that at 7th level. And again, there is a cost of components of 200 gold per level of what you want this potion to mimic as far as a spell that it's mimicking. So if you want to create a potion of sleep, that's going to be however many 100 gold per level of that mimicking of the spell. Last and not least, for magic items, you run into this section where they titled it Creating Unusual Magic Items. I wouldn't necessarily say that the items that fall under this category would be unusual, mostly because I've been playing the game for so long, but these are basically everything else. And really, you're talking about the majority of magic items that the characters are going to find in the game world. Boots, hats, helmets, capes, cloaks, robes, wands, belts, gloves, rings, all of that falls under unusual items. Now, clerics and druids cannot create one of these items until they're 12th level. Wizards, illusionists, and again, necromancers and witches from the Braunhaven Player's Guidebook, or Player's Guide, they can do it at 9th level. Now, this is where it gets a little odd. So there are two processes that can be used in order to create a magic item, such as this. The first is that so magic items, they don't just, it's not just that they can mimic spell effects. You might be creating a sword +1, or there could be a ring that grants, for instance, the rogue's climb sheer surface ability. In order for that to take place in the first way of item creation, the wizard or cleric, arcane or divine caster, has to get somebody who has that ability. So let's say that's one of the other players. Let's say you've got a rogue in your party, and the wizard says, okay, we're going to make this ring so that we can give it to the barbarian or the fighter, whatever. And so the two of them get together, and they have to expend the number of experience points in order for that ability to trigger. So if rogues get it at 1st level, it's whatever the amount of 1st level for a rogue is. That amount is split evenly between the wizard the wizard or cleric that's creating the item and the character that's donating that skill or ability. Those two characters lose those experience points. They are going into the magic item. And however many days of this ritual goes by, they cannot be interrupted during that period of time. And then once that is completed, the item is created, and they can give that to whoever they like. The second method of doing this is just simply to dump money into it. Now, generally, when you do this with the gold expenditure, you're talking about doubling the allotment of time. So instead of days for this ritual to take place, you're now talking about weeks. And so just the wizard alone spends the amount of gold. I don't really care for the idea, like if you're mimicking a class ability, if you don't have that other party, I don't see how that is getting imbued into the item simply by wishing it with gold. But as they say, any problem can be solved by throwing money at it, and this is how you do that. And there's a handy chart here that allows you to calculate the cost of what it is that you are trying to do, and just throw that money into the pot. And after so many weeks of working on this particular item, the item is created. These are all what fifth edition would call downtime activities, but you're talking about a large amount of downtime. These items cannot be created overnight. In most cases, you're talking about this taking a very long time, because this is a very complicated and a very in-depth ritual that requires one or more, usually more people are going to be involved in these rituals. For Braunhaven, I mean, you can select how you want to do that as the castle keeper, or what you allow in your game. I prefer to do both. I think that magic item creation. So back in third edition, after about I don't know, after about 10th level, you had characters with a ton of money in third edition, and they could spend it. They had very in-depth item creation rules, but there was no limiting factor, and so other than money. And so you had, after about 10th level, if you were in a prolonged campaign, you had characters that were creating magic items left and right. I like to do both of these because it puts a limiter on it. You have the wizard, and you have, in our example, you have the wizard and you have the rogue. Are they both going to be willing to give up some of their experience points to create this magic item? And I think that the experience point expenditure to create a magic item that mimics a class ability is, I can't really logically explain why it wouldn't be required. You are taking a part of that person's skill and abilities, muscle memory, what have you, and putting it into a ring, for instance. It can't be mimicked by just spending money. If the wizard doesn't have the climb sheer surface ability, he's not going to be able to make a ring of climb sheer surface. It's just not something that he's capable of doing. And so I use both. They're going to have to spend a lot of money, they're going to have to spend a lot of time, and they're going to have to spend a chunk of experience points in order to create these magic items. And that is the rule going forward in my games, in my Braunhaven games, for all magic items that are found in the world. Now, it is assumed that in Braunhaven that there was a time period before the Reckoning where there was some kind of large kingdom, empire, magical sorcerer kings, what have you. Nobody knows exactly the nature of that. I don't even know, and I created the world. But though they were powerful enough that they were able to create a number of these items, and that is what the characters are finding when they are going into a dungeon. These items, I wouldn't say that they are common. There are some common magic items that are mostly of silly or very minor effects, but that +1 sword that you find, that sword probably had a name, and it was created for some great general or warrior of some kind, as either a reward for their service or what have you. But each of these items is special in some way. And the reason why they're special is because the expenditure of experience points, time, and money had to go into crafting these items. And it is quite significant per each item. Now, the other way that the way that this kind of ties in with saving throws is then we have to think about what, you know, what do these items require as far as a saving throw? So let's say that you have a wand of fireball. So there's a couple of ways that this can be handled. There's 3 ways that it can be handled. The first way is because clerics and druids have to be 12th level in order for a magic item to be created. Probably the simplest way that this can be construed is that every magic item can be assumed to have a challenge level of 12 for their saving throw. Now, I find that to be a little draconian because let's say that your characters are 4th level and they are in a dungeon and they come across a wand of fireballs that has 10 charges in it. Worse than that, they run into a creature that has a wand of fireballs with 10 charges in it. In order for them to make their dexterity saving throw for half damage, you're talking about a challenge level of 12. So that means that if dexterity is their prime attribute, they're going to have to get 24 or better in order to take half damage. Or if it's a secondary, now you're talking about what, 31? That is way too high for lower level characters. The first way of doing it is better. The challenge level is just the character or creature's level that has created the item. Well, here again, you're talking about either 9 or 12, which is still too high. The second method is to assume that the challenge level for that wand of fireball would be the equivalent of the level of the creature that's using the item. This is much more doable. If you have an ogre that for some reason has this wand of fireballs and knows how to use it, let's just, as an example, you have a special ogre. And he's level 4, so therefore now the CL is only 4 instead of the 12. Your characters actually have an opportunity to take that half damage and save it against it, rather than assuming that the item creation is a flat 12. I think that is a much more fair way of doing it, and that's how I do it in my Braunhaven campaigns. You can handle it however you like. If you like the idea of assuming every magic item has a CL of 12 for their saving throw, have at it, but your characters, the players in your game are probably going to be pretty agitated because they are going to be constantly failing that saving throw. So just set, what I do is I just set the challenge level of the saving throw to the creature that's using the magic item and kind of leave it at that. And if you use that as a blanket statement, I mean, not all magic items are going to work that way. Some items right out of Monsters and Treasure have their own challenge level for their saving throws. But others, you should, I would recommend just selecting the level of the creature that's using it. So then we come back to more ideas for money sinks. Now, Castles and Crusades does have what they referred to originally as wastage system. But it's not really a system. So in the Castle Keeper's Guide, they talk about combat wastage. And essentially what this section basically says is that you basically role play the combat wastage, and there's no real hard rules. I mean, you could just say that after traveling for 2 to 3 weeks, by the time that the characters get to the next town, after having done a hex crawl, they are going to have to purchase new boots. That is more than likely pretty obvious. If they didn't have mounts, if they're spending most of their time on their feet, if they got into a couple of combats, they're going to have to repurchase some stuff or get some things repaired. That much is obvious, but there's no hard and set rules as to combat wastage. There's also no hard set rules as to what it would cost to repair. This is going to be left up regardless of where you get the rules. This is going to be left up to the castle keeper. The new book, Adventurer's Armory, actually has some better hard-coded rules as far as weapon and item durability. And so basically what this book has in it, what Adventurer's Armory has, is that each item has a durability score. And so let's say that you... usually this is triggered on a natural 1 or a natural 20 on an attack roll. And if you get a nat 1, there is a possibility that your sword will break, or the head of your mace will come off, or the head of the axe comes off, or what have you. The bow breaks, whatever. And so the way this works is that the durability item, you roll a natural 1, you then have to roll another d20. And let's say that the sword has a durability of 7. If a 7 or lower is rolled, then the weapon takes durability damage. And so that kind of hard codes in whether or not it's like, oh, you broke your sword. Well, now you're going to, next time you're in town, you're probably going to want to purchase a new sword, and there is the expenditure of money. And this should be happening constantly. But even aside from critical hits and misses, the armor and weapons have the ability to take durability damage. And the way that works is that after so many hits, they will lose a certain amount of durability, and when it loses that amount of durability, the armor would have a -1 to its reduction for armor class, or a weapon would have a -1 to either to hit or to damage. It is the player's choice. And then that durability starts over, and when it loses that durability, an additional -1 is applied. And so as items are used, they can lose durability. And I really think that this is going to be the direction that I'm going to go in my games, is because you can't purchase one set of armor and get wailed on over and over and over again and never have to do an expenditure of repair work or simply purchasing new armor completely. At some point, I would say if it's lost more than half of its durability, it's beyond the hope of repair. You're just going to have to purchase new stuff. And so now with the rules in Adventurer's Armory, there are now hard-coded rules on how you can go about doing durability and the expenditure of money for purchasing new equipment. So that is today's video. I hope to catch you next week, and I hope everybody has a very good Thanksgiving.